overall topic is the 3 marks of existence. And no sooner had I planned to talk about the 3 marks and decided that I was going to start with suffering, I began studying about them. And in various traditions. And when I landed on Trungpa Rinpoche's remarks, he made it clear that there was definitely an order that you discussed these, and it was not the order that I had in mind. One started with impermanence and not with suffering, and that there were actually 4 instead of 3. There are some traditions that talk about the 4 marks. And these are in order: impermanence, suffering, egolessness, and then nirvana, or cessation. And not everyone talks about the 4th one, but it's interesting that Trungpa Rinpoche describes these not as marks of existence, but he puts them in the context of how to view existence, how to view your life. So these are like glasses. This is how you study. If you decide to practice Buddhism, and specifically, if you decide to practice in a non-theistic way. And by that, and this is stressed, this is something he stressed quite a bit, and I think it's worth rehearsing. The idea of non-theism as opposed to theism here means that we are not worrying about or concerned with a higher being, or God specifically, or heaven, which fits really well with impermanence, because if you have a God, pretty much everybody who has a God imagines that he's always been there, or she has always been there and is there now and is going to continue being there. And so if you decide to work with a non-theistic approach where you're not taking that into account, or not sort of using that imagery as part of your spiritual path, then you are confronted with a different set of realities, which is that the observable facts of the world the observable fact is impermanence. Nothing lasts. I remember when I was teaching about this one time in the London Shambhala Center, when we were doing a guided meditation, and I remember mentioning that the city of London wasn't going to last, and this upset Miss Hope quite a bit. Jane, you got upset with me. Like, oh my God, the city. At least the city's going to stay there, but no. So the great biographer, in my mind, a great biographer of Suzuki Roshi, David Chadwick, recounts the story of being in the monastery with him in the late 1960s and putting up his hand in an evening lecture and saying, Roshi, I love being in the monastery. I love meditating. I like eating with oryoki, wearing robes, practicing with the community. I love you. I even like coming to your talks. It's just I don't understand anything that you say. And maybe could you please just, condense it? Could you give it to me like really simply? Could you give me the message of Buddhism like in one word, if possible? And instead of blowing up or whatever, Suzuki Roshi just said, okay, impermanence. Everything changes. That's the core message, the first message. of the Buddha Dharma. And as I said before, it's an observable fact. It's something, though, that we choose not to always look at. And I'll try to talk a little about why that might be. But if you are observant of your life and that of others around you, you can't help but see that things are constantly changing, that it's all moving parts. There's nothing staying still. And this was brought home to me again by my daughter, who will turn 18 next week. And she just finished high school, a very disappointing end since there's no graduation allowed or no prom or none of the celebratory stuff. But I feel like, I watched her change from like the first day of school, then going to the high school and the gymnasium, as it's called over here, and now finishing. But of course, I try to ignore the fact that I also am changing, even as I'm trying to watch her change, that I am also getting older and frailer and less capable, and well, we'll leave it at that. So, dealing with relatives, and certainly in these days in which we're living, or as the Spanish would say, these days which we're going through, impermanence is, what's on the news, it's what's in the paper, it's what's on the internet, it's our very experience, things that seemed so solid and so powerful and so unstoppable, unchangeable 3-4 months ago. It's not so. And I've been going out for my little exercise walks, which are allowed in Germany, and people obviously or evidently have been cleaning out their apartments. And since they're staying at home, they've been kind of doing some house cleaning. And so if you go on your walks and you go down the sidewalk, you will see these possessions sitting there to be taken if you want. They all say, please take this if you want. And these were things that were bought, that were valuable at one point. You see computer screens out there, you see printers, you see books, CDs, movies, all kinds of things that once made a life, and now they're just kind of trash on the sidewalk. So it's, you're stumbling over impermanence, literally. It's like everywhere you look. But we also have the experience that we don't change. I was watching my daughter, that was obvious change, but me, no. I was trying to pretend that I wasn't changing. And we have this kind of desire not to change. Change is scary and disorienting and unfamiliar and generally painful. And so we do what we can to ignore it. I was thinking it's a little bit like the flat earth theory, right? You can say, well, I can see the earth is flat. It's just, it's right out the door. There it is, it's flat. So you can't tell me that it's round, because I can see that it's flat. So that is a legitimate part of our view of the world. and that I don't change is a legitimate perception, at least on the surface level. Other things can change, but I'm still me. I'm still, who I've always been, at least today. So that is where our practice of meditation comes in, and mindfulness. And this is one of the things that you're supposed to look at and learn about through the practice of meditation, is that no, you are not the same. You are constantly changing. Your body is not the same today as it was yesterday. It's not the same in the afternoon after lunch as it was before lunch, or last month, or last year, or heaven forfend a decade or two ago. It's not the same body. Even our thought patterns, which feel so relentless and familiar, are not the same. They're subtly, or maybe even not so subtly, different. We're concerned about different things. We're obsessed about different things. We can't hold on to a particular topic, even if it's a virtuous topic, even if it's something we want to hold on to. Our mind is very jumpy, and moments of consciousness arise and vanish constantly. And the more familiar we are with meditation, the more subtly we see that, the more that is impressed upon us. Even if we're upset, if we're heartbroken, or we've lost somebody, and we can't get it out of our minds in the course of our daily life, when we sit down and we try to hold it in our mind, we can't do that either. It flickers in and out. Once you start to settle and observe your experience more finely, you'll see that there's nothing that you can hold on to, that it's constantly flashing in and out of your experience. It's not staying there permanently. It might flash repeatedly, but there will be interruptions. You will forget to obsess, or you will forget to hold on to your virtuous object of meditation. You will forget to put your mind on your breath or your posture, as if that's some failing. It's not a failing. It's the experience you're supposed to have in meditation, that it's impossible to hold on. That you can't hold on because things are very, very slippery. You have to try to hold on so that you see that you can't. So whether you're looking at your outer life and watching things change, the milk go sour because you forgot to get new milk, or the mold growing in the bathroom, or the flowers coming up and blooming, or whether it's your inner life or your closer experience with your body, with your posture, with your toothache, with your busy mind. If you're paying attention, if you're observant, you can see that impermanence is just a fact. In fact, the main thing that Trungpa Rinpoche says about it is, he says, that's the way it is. You can't argue with that. So instead of fighting with it, it's possible, the implications of how to relate to this fact, this way that it is, it can go different ways. You could get depressed about it. And actually, it's a little bit dangerous. And it's specifically not a good idea to use the truth of impermanence to say, well, yeah, if it's impermanent, then, it doesn't matter. Why should I make a garden if, the autumn's going to come and frost is going to ruin it and deer's going to get over the fence and eat it, and why bother? Or why should I sit up straight if, as the years go, I'm just going to crumple over? Or, why should I even try to contemplate something like compassion when my mind is just going to bounce around? So that is what is called nihilism or nihilism. And that's kind of not a good idea. You're not supposed to use the truth of impermanence in that way, as an excuse to be lazy, basically. But it is kind of a corrective. It's like you use it like, you apply it, sometimes they say like salt or like spice. Too much salt will kill you, but the right amount will make things workable or digestible or palatable. So I think it's, frankly, it helps you accept life, your life, and the life of those around you. When you realize, and the more profoundly you realize it, the more profoundly you can accept that there's nothing still. There's nothing, there's no eternity. There's nothing that's not going to change. This teaching came from the land of India, which, is now, as we speak, docking on Asia and pushing up the Himalayas. Geologically, it's still moving, it's still coming in. And I believe the Atlantic is still opening. There's nothing still. So as practitioners, we can meditate on impermanence to help us accept the facts of our lives. I am getting older. People are moving. People are dying. New people are being born. It isn't like it used to be. And, once you use it in that way, it's a corrective. It's as is said, it's one of the 4 ways of viewing your path. And specifically, it leads to the topic that we'll go into on Thursday night of suffering. It goes against our, tendency to want to hold, to want to just, I don't know about you, but some days I lie there in bed and I think, why? Why should I take the cover off and stand up and get up? It's fine here for now. I'm okay. Nothing wrong at the moment. The minute I get up and start doing things, it's going to be problem after problem. But, that's where you meditate on impermanence. And this is one of the classic Buddhist meditations. So if you think of yourself as someone who is a practitioner and wants to step on the path of meditation, this is what you look at. This is what you work with. Instead of fighting with it, you kind of encourage it. Let me see if I had any other notes that I wanted to say for tonight. Oh, the Tibetan for this is mi takpa. Mi is not, takpa is permanent. The Sanskrit is anicca, I think, or anicca. I'm not sure whether it's a soft C or a hard C, but it means the same thing. It means nothing is still. So maybe with those words as a topic or as a kind of exposition, we could now break into groups of 3 or 4 and then come back and say, what did we say, Jess, 15 minutes, 10 or 15,